ABC News has agreed to pay Donald Trump $15 million. Actually, that's closer to $16 million when you factor in legal fees. So what happened is that ABC News agreed to settle out of court rather than let one of their star hosts sit for a deposition that a judge scheduled for this week. Trump had sued ABC News and host George Stephanopoulos for claiming that he raped author E. Jean Carroll in the 1990s in a Bergdorf Goodman dressing room. A civil jury found that he sexually abused her, but didn't believe he raped her, and that was actually an issue the jury had to rule on. Trump, however, has maintained that he did neither.
But never met her, never touched her, never had anything to do with her.
Stephanopoulos invited North Carolina Congresswoman Nancy Mace onto his show to ask her how she could be a rape survivor and still support Donald Trump.
You've endorsed Donald Trump for president. Judges and two separate juries have found him liable for rape and for defaming the victim of that rape. How do you square your endorsement of Donald Trump with the testimony we just saw?
Trump said in his lawsuit that Stephanopoulos and ABC News thus defamed him. Now, journalists at ABC News are reportedly angry that their company capitulated to Trump. After all, it's a pretty high bar to win a defamation lawsuit against a journalist and a news company, and Trump is a public figure, which makes it even harder. But this may have actually been a smart move by ABC. ABC executives believe that the judge in the case had already shown she was sympathetic to Trump's arguments, and since the case would be heard by a jury in Florida, which Trump swept with 56% of the vote in the last presidential election, they worried the jury would be against them. According to the New York Times, Bob Iger, who is the CEO of Disney, the parent company of ABC, was worried that a protracted legal battle would cost even more than the settlement, and ABC was also worried that this case could go all the way to the Supreme Court. If the court, which has a majority of conservatives, ruled against ABC News, it could set a bad legal precedent that could hurt media companies writ large in the long term. So instead, ABC chose to write a $15 million check to Trump's future presidential library, as well as pay another $1 million for his legal fees, which, if you're on Trump's side on this, is a wonderfully poetic justice because journalists are probably some of the biggest bookworms on the planet. ABC News issued something of an apology. In an editor's note on its website, it says ABC News and George Stephanopoulos regret statements regarding President Donald J. Trump made during an interview by George Stephanopoulos with Rep. Nancy Mace on ABC's This Week on March 10, 2024. Now, to me, that reads more like "I'm sorry I got caught" rather than "I'm sorry I got the story wrong." And forgive me for sounding like a broken record, but it's cases like this where clearly Stephanopoulos was wrong, or to use the euphemistic term for it, inaccurate. But instead of just admitting its error, which would have helped its reputation as a credible news organization that cares about the facts, ABC chose to fight the lawsuit. It was only when the judge ordered Stephanopoulos to sit for a deposition that it admitted its error. Now, this also raises the question of why. Was ABC News worried about what would come out in discovery? Is there something ABC didn't want people to know about Stephanopoulos or its editorial decisions? Or were they worried that Trump would be able to prove that Stephanopoulos lied knowingly and had actual malice towards Trump, which is required to win a defamation case? That might not be too hard to prove considering ABC's coverage of Trump, as well as the fact that Stephanopoulos worked for former Democratic President Bill Clinton. If you like this story and want more news about the media, head over to my channel Newspeak and check out my other videos. I'm your host, Kellum, and once again, you're watching Newspeak.